Hello, everybody. It's Max with Crypto Talk. Now, think of how many times that you yourself may have personally gotten to various different crypto projects, and those particular projects have basically focused on one set technology, and of course, maybe retweeted about that technology, or if anything, shared it over and over again on the likes of the Telegram and so on. But with Quant, a different story. They have created new technology literally every day. How do we know that? Well, if anything, let's kick it into today's quant coverage. So as you can see right here, this comes actually straight from Gilbert Verdian. And again, shout out to Quant Papa for always retweeting and showing us these great clips and so on. Highly recommend you follow him if you're the type to use Twitter. But it states, inventing new technology every day. And that's basically what Quant is doing. It's not focusing on one set technology. If anything, it's creating great quality with what they have, putting that focus on that, and then from there, moving on and creating more and more technologies. You're going to hear this straight from the man of the hour, the big head honcho, if you will, Gilbert Verdian, who basically outlines this in about 2 minutes. And of course, we'll come right back.
Because you're so busy building the tech and not really releasing that much information about those developments.
Yeah, and that's been our problem. We're not out there screaming, "Hey, look at us! Look what we've done! This is amazing." We're building and inventing new technology every day, and it's just a bit hard to just constantly go, "Wow, look what we've built!" Look what because it's new. Everything.
But Gil, is it really? Is it really? If you've got someone specifically assigned to that role, is it really that hard?
Yeah, so that's why we've got the team who do corporate communications and we've got that sorted. We're increasing the way we're doing marketing, so we've got 2 people joining to increase that as well. We didn't want to be over zealous and loud in everything because we just spent the last 9 months focused on the tech to deliver that. So I didn't want the team to go on Telegram 24/7 and chat about everything. I wanted them to do work, and that's what we've done. So We've been quite quiet, relatively speaking to everyone else, because we've been just busy building stuff.
Sure, but you have been criticized for that heavily by some in the space because you've been so quiet. Now, obviously, there's a balance. Yep. In which people can have the information. So from this point forth, are you going to be a little bit more active in the way in which you release key information to once again inform those who are the educated pro-quant network supporters, investors, or simply those who want to understand more about what's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't want to be, claiming things and not delivering. So the focus was to deliver the technology and, it works, it's out there, it's live, and we've done that. And now that we've done that, we can actually go with, hand on heart, very honestly, hey, you can do this, and here's an example, because we've built it. So we've got the credibility and we've got the technology to show for it. We're not just talking like fluffy stuff.
Yeah, basically, they're the real McCoy. And if anything, it's, recognizing what they have, executing upon that. Again, the quality over the quantity. Again, refer to one of the recent videos that we basically did here at CTN covering these particular statements and so on and backing that up. A little bit more in regards to our quant coverage. And what I want to state is this. Again, this is something that kind of continuously gets brought up here at CTN, and that is, this particular blockchain project, is ISO 222 compliant, just like, with the likes of some of these other ones and so on. They don't need quant. They're already interoperable. Are they? Because here's the thing. There's this statement, like I mentioned before, about being interoperable, and that sounds great. It does. But there's some issues with making that particular claim. And this right here breaks it down so eloquently. So draw your attention to the left side of this particular chart. You're going to see how, for instance, Quant's Overledger, again, not a blockchain, an operating system, sits above all this. So you got your first generation of blockchains, your second generation, interoperability blockchains, right? Like some of the ones that, sit right below that. With Overledger, like it mentions on the bottom left, they are the first interoperable blockchain operating system. Again, key words here is operating system that facilitates the internet scale development of decentralized multi-chain applications. Overledger is not another blockchain. It is the Overledger that sits on top of blockchains, providing a meta gateway. And of course, we'll get more into how all that basically is broke down. Overledger is focusing on 3 goals: developing an interface to connect the world's networks to multiple blockchains, bridging existing networks, for example, financial services, to new blockchains. And then number 3, developing a new blockchain operating system with a protocol and a platform to allow developers to easily create next generation multi-chain applications. Now, draw your attention now to the right side, because on the right side, the issue basically is this. You don't have an operating system that sits above this. If anything, one of the prerequisites to make it quote unquote interoperable according to their standards is to do just what? Create, for instance, an additional blockchain to make that happen. And basically, as you can see right here on the right side, there's a few key things that have to happen based on that current way of how these things are set up. For one, it's going to create an additional, like I mentioned, a blockchain. An additional blockchain, if anything, consensus. And with that consensus, it's going to basically set up things in which they're trying to make it chain to chain, but again, that creates a blockchain consensus. Requiring other blockchains to have another blockchain on top of that creates barriers. And if anything, we're not trying to create any barriers. Again, what we covered here before, especially if you're new to all this, there's countless times you've heard Gilbert Verdian make the expression of, hey, you know what? This representative from the Bank of France contacted us at Quant. We basically talked to him. He stated basically, hey, we're already familiar with Quant. We love what you guys do. We love your technology and so on. What can we do basically to make things that much more interoperable? And he basically says, no. We're Quant. We do all the heavy lifting for you. We don't want you to have to focus your manpower on creating your, for instance, your technologies, your blockchain, et cetera, to be interoperable with us, right? We will go ahead and do the heavy lifting to make things interoperable with you. Focus on doing you. And I love that because it sends out a message, to everybody else that Quant is just that. It is fully interoperable. Why? Because you don't have to jump through the hoops. You don't have to go through all the red tape. You don't have to have your dev team focus on trying to make things compatible / interoperable with the likes of Quant. All right, a little bit more in regards to our particular coverage. And it comes from this right here. Now, for instance, I know that when you see the term IoT, it can mean a couple of different things, basically, when it comes to the likes of some of this terminology. For the purposes of this video, we're just going to say Internet of Trust. I also get that, IoT also means Internet of Things, but the key thing here is the trust. So anyways, IoT needs Overledger, security, and immutable data rails without being tied to, of course, one chain. Listen to what Gilbert has to state right here in front of this particular panel and so on. And of course, we'll come back in about 2 minutes in regards to giving you guys some more commentary on just that.
So I've worked in cybersecurity for 20 years as a chief security officer a few times in the last few roles. Security starts with trust, and at the end of the day, you can't trust people you can't control. So your environments in a supply chain, a multi-party environment, are very complex, and it's very difficult for you to embed and have the same controls on your competitors, your partners, third parties, as your own environment. You can only control up to your border. And if you look at what's happened recently, this is a broad issue. The Target hack that really happened, I think it's about 5 years ago now, was from the air conditioning partner, which was connected to the Target network, and they used that to get in. So you're already on the back foot with cybersecurity and the risk that you have to manage.
the way you address it is through proper risk management and through proper controls, and especially with IoT, because the devices that have come out in IoT do not have the same level of security as computers, because we've spent 20 years, 30 years improving operating systems, networks, and all the firewalls and controls that we have in place for computers, but we haven't done the same for IoT. IoTs are insecure by default, and that's what you have to work with. So the way you manage that is you have a segregated space for IoT devices, where only they can communicate with each other. There is no network they can jump into, which can affect them, and they're not on the internet, they're not on a public network, they're not on a private network, they're segregated. And for me, as a chief security officer in health, I saw this firsthand, where IoT devices that were connected to people to measure blood and different metrics, they could have been hacked, and morphine levels could have been tampered with, so people could have killed themselves. So all the thresholds could have been actually changed remotely, so you can kill people with packets. So the way we fixed that was to completely segregate that environment as an engineering environment, as a IoT environment, and having no one access it except the device, and then back to the server and nothing else. It's very difficult, but it's possible to do.
So, one example I definitely want to mention is, like, for instance, he hits the nail on the head on this. And you may be wondering, well, what does it have to do with the likes of, some of these other things? Think about this. If the likes of Quant, especially Gilbert Verdian, who stated, especially in our previous video, since 2008, he's basically wanted to create the digital pound. Now, do I want somebody who wants to create the digital pound, right, not recognize the security with some of these things, with some of these IoTs? Like, for instance, as we speak, my washing machine is technically speaking on an unsecured connection. Do I care about that? No, not really. Why? Because it's not really connected to anything on my network. But there's certain default devices where I'm okay with, the internet of trust, if you will, when it comes to those. Why? Because, like you mentioned, those should be segregated. Just like, for instance, my neighbor's his particular Bluetooth connection, it says, like, for instance, living room speaker, right? That's his own business. It is a technically unsecured line. He should fix that, for instance, because people could connect to it and so on and just basically use the internet. But the point is, as long as that's his own separate entity and it's not really connected to anything, then what should be the big issue? My thing is this. My thing is, if you're going to have the likes of the digital pound, it's recognizing the security flaws. Like he mentioned, the Target 2 system did get hacked. All right. Well, then some of these things need to be separate systems, if you will, right? In their own separate category and so on. So it may seem real common sense or real basic, but again, sometimes you need that to be broken down in a way to understand and so on. Like it mentions here, Overledger security and immutable data rails without being tied to one chain. What would be that one chain? Again, we don't want my washer connected to the same chain as all my stuff that's supposed to be secured. Just like, for instance, my neighbor doesn't want, anything connected to the same chain as maybe his home server or his home network. You kind of get where I'm going with this. All right, a little bit more in regards to our particular coverage here. This right here, we stated here before, we even had, for instance, a video devoted to this particular topic. That it says basically the re-architecting of the financial system. So a little bit more detail in regards to this. Listen to a few things that he has to say. Again, this is a while back, but still, it pounds it home that much more and reiterates it that much more to hear Gilbert Verdian talking about a few of these key things. It's about a minute and 14 seconds, and then we'll kick it right back.
With your competition to go to market, because there's a new business model, there's a new revenue stream that you never had before, and it's really thanks to technology and the trust that it brings, and blockchain has been a component. The other thing that we're seeing is openness. So traditionally the financial services sector and the whole system was closed. It was very limited to a select few that can actually operate on it, but regulators have come in and opened it up, and what we're seeing now central banks are coming and directly being involved with central bank digital currencies because they believe and they see the economic benefit of allowing access to central bank money. If you look at the whole financial system, there is room to have a digital dollar or a digital pound to allow wholesale and retail intermediaries and retailers to benefit from accessing central bank money, removing the complexity of the system and allowing for growth. And that is super exciting. You can't imagine any central bank talking about this type of stuff less than 5 years ago, and now they're all doing it.
Yeah, they're all doing it, and if anything, they're recognizing what? They're recognizing the technology of what Quant brings to the table to make it all interconnected. And that's another thing I wanted to, of course, bring to your attention. You know, there's this right here, the barriers in which it takes to become a bank. There's a few key things you're going to hear here. I know I'm going back and forth, but again, this is part of our outline that we want to bring to you. You're going to hear things, for instance, he's going to mention the likes of, for instance, Apple becoming a bank, Amazon becoming a bank. And you may think, wow, you know, why would they want to do that? Again, big money that is involved. And on top of that, how it's no longer, you know, all these harsh requirements to become just that, a bank. This is about 40 seconds, and then we'll be right back.
Intermediation of banks is happening, and the barriers to become a bank are a lot lower today than they were 10 years ago, just from regulation. The regulators are opening up that walled garden, allowing for innovation to happen. And what we're seeing for the first time is technology companies that can be your bank. And I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon in the next 5 years is a bank, Apple is a bank. We're seeing that with the Goldman Sachs card, the Apple card that they've released, and utilities or phone companies can be your bank. So banks are going to transform and adopt to become service providers to other companies who can be the bank and the front interface to the person. Intermediation of bank.
And that right there in itself, if you think about it, is basically how those particular companies, their market cap in itself goes up, you know, substantially, right? You know, with some of those particular examples that he made. Now, I'm not stating for the record that's definitely what's going to happen with the likes of Amazon, Apple, and so on. But if anything, they would have the tech to make that happen. All right, a little bit more in regards to our quant coverage before we wrap things up. There is this, and this is the cream of the crop as far as I'm concerned. Again, like it says, nothing to see here, but oh man, is it ever. Now, I just want to state for the record, this is where I feel as though that Quant is basically going to become the Bitcoin of ISO 2022. This is where I feel as though Quant, which is currently sitting around 31 to 33 in the overall CMC rankings. This is where I feel that eventually Bitcoin's days are numbered when it comes to holding that number one spot of never being an altcoin. I'm not saying that they're going to permanently be an altcoin. Don't get me wrong here. But this is where Quant becomes the number one crypto out there. And I know if you're just new to this, you're thinking, you know, you're nuts. No, I really am not. I'm going to back that up with some data for you guys. So if anything, look at this. Okay. So if you already know about SWIFT, right, then that's a big thing in itself. So look at this particular address, right? So quant/api.gateway1.com/SWIFT. All right. Like it mentions at the top, the underlying object it points to may be a network address, data block, transaction ID, alias, etc., or a future object type not yet defined. And you kind of have an idea where this is going. So on top of that, here's an example. What you see right here, SATRES://quant/api.gateway1.com/SWIFT. Are you kidding me? Again, this is massive. How about this particular statement? The blockchain and network services are mainly centered around blockchain and, of course, network solutions. Blockchain products include SIA Chain, a private infrastructure created by SIA to develop innovative blockchain applications based on distributed ledger technology. In addition to several innovative projects and partnerships For example, the Spunta Bank project aimed at applying blockchain technology to interbank processes, and the partnerships with Quant Network focused on researching the interoperability between blockchain technologies and services for banks and financial institutions. Network solutions mainly include SIA Net, Financial Ring, a one-stop solution covering the value chain of the security exchange industry, colocation, MTS, and Eurex solution, ultra-low latency connection, providing space for trading infrastructure, and the SWIFT Connectivity Management SCM service, which provides logical network access to the SWIFT IP network. A little bit more in regards to this. All right. You kind of can see how this is broken down right here. I wish I could zoom a little bit more on this, but I can't, unfortunately. So, like you see, it says SWIFT CBDC Connector Gateway. A CBDC Connector Gateway was built to facilitate seamless interactions between various networks via the SWIFT platform simulator. This gateway acts as a standardized interface for all traffic between the CBDC network and the SWIFT platform simulator, which is a single entry and exit point for cross-border payments to and from the CBDC network. The gateway is run on a regulated mode and provides the flexibility for network operators to implement their connection to the gateway based on their specific network design, so on and so forth. Okay, so you kind of get a breakdown of how that's really established, especially how SWIFT went about it for, let's face it, for years, since the 1970s. Now, what I want to do is bring your attention to this final thing. You already saw how there's going to be this connection with the likes of Quant with SWIFT. Give you a more broader perspective of how to understand the current SWIFT system. It mentions that in September of 2022, SWIFT recorded an average of 44.8 million FIN messages per day. Traffic grew by 8% versus the same period of the previous year. Just a little bit more brief stuff that you can even look up for yourself. How many transactions does SWIFT process a year? An average of 42 million payments and security transactions were processed using our FIN message servers per day last year, underscoring SWIFT as the platform of choice for financial institutions worldwide and demonstrating our relevance to the future growth of the digital economy. And then, of course, going from that to the likes of ISO 222, right? A little bit more in regards to this. What percentage of transactions go through SWIFT? Direct payments can message one another through SWIFT or through CIP's own messaging system. Indirect participants send and receive instructions through SWIFT, as noted earlier. But listen to this. Young and Go, this is again for this year, 2022, estimate that 80% of payments through CIPS use SWIFT messaging. Again, that was posted in May. And then how about this? Here's the nail on the head, right? The icing on the cake. How many banks use SWIFT? 11,000 banks. SWIFT was founded to replace Telex. It is a member-owned cooperative connecting more than 11,000 banks, financial institutions, corporations in more than 200 countries and territories. And again, I will remind you this right here. Right there. When you heard, for instance, the chief technology officer of Quant basically mentioning, they were talking to SWIFT. Where? At Sibos. Gilbert Verdian. Verify the same thing. And then you see this. Again, you can draw your own conclusion. This is absolutely massive. Because again, if your crypto is tied in, your particular crypto investments, I should say, are tied in with the ones that have the solid utility, like the likes of Quant and so on, it's something to be said. This is, when I found this out, I just thought to myself, wow, this is beyond massive. Because if anything, that's how we accomplish some of these crazy market cap predictions and so on. And even with that said, I don't even think anybody even comes really, really close when it's fully tested and implemented, to say the least. So guys, that wraps up today's Quant coverage. I can't thank you enough for staying to the end on this particular one. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And by all means, hit that bell notification. And if you enjoy a live show, I highly recommend checking out our daily show. It's at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific every single day of the week. Again, thanks again for watching. May you all have a blessed day, and we'll see you on the next one.